Consumers of professional wrestling, hello again. My name is Dan Wilson, and you are listening to Receipt Radio. I've called this episode of the podcast the P.O.F., the podcast of free fighting, bit of a spin on the Hoff. And yes, as you could guess, this podcast is all about Newcastle Pro Wrestling and, of course, the Hoose. On today's episode, I'm going to recap Newcastle Pro Wrestling number 80 from the Charlestown Bowling Club. And also the Hoose Party show from this past weekend, Full Hoose. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to preview the 5th annual Newy Pro Rumble event. So we will get right into that right now. So the good thing for me, being here in Sydney, it's been quite cold and windy, and even though I'm in my 30s, I am an old, frail man, so I haven't been able to get up to Newcastle Pro Wrestling or the Hoose. But I have been able to watch both of these shows thanks to Newy Pro following the lead of sister organisation Pro Wrestling Australia and streaming the event live on Overplay. So I, along with many other Sydney fans, I'm sure, have had that same opportunity, and really pleased that it gives all of our talented grapplers from these two rosters some fantastic exposure. And as I said, allowing those who can't necessarily get to Newcastle an opportunity to see, some of the best and brightest coming out of the House of Free Fighting, and also the Pro Wrestling Academy. There are students from those shows, that school, also appearing on these shows as well. So, without further delay or rambling on my part, let's have a look at the results of Newcastle Pro Wrestling number 80. We'll break down some of the action that we were treated to, courtesy of the very talented roster of Newcastle Pro Wrestling. So the first match was a tag team contest. It was between the Velocities, Jude the Dude London and Paris de Silva, and they took on the Black Shirt Cool Group, which is Concrete Davidson and Jax Jordan, with the Velocities picking up the win. So first thing to note, Jude the Dude London and Paris de Silva, constantly now are showing off these Invictus gauntlets that are in their possession. So that was from winning the Kings of the Castle tournament, which was a trios format this year. So Jude the Dude London and Paris de Silva teamed up with Belle Pierce, and they were the winners of the tournament. So those three grapplers have a gauntlet that they can throw down for title opportunities of their choosing in the future. So we've seen that in the past. We've seen, Matty Wahlberg very successfully cash in's not the word, sorry, throw down his gauntlet at the right time. We've also seen it not succeed as well. And you just have to look at his Babes partner, Carter Deems, didn't have as much luck throwing down his gauntlet, but it is a very, very good thing to have. I was going to say up your sleeve, but I wanted to try and avoid that pun, and I've used it anyway. But it is a very important piece of jewelry, clothing. Sorry, I'll move on. But the other thing I will mention, I really do like their flashy red togas they have, and they're quite flashy, and it's kind of a bit of the style you get from their wrestling as well. So they're looking very very snazzy, I believe was the word I used in my review, which you can read on Potato on Receipt if you don't want to hear me rambling. So as I said, their opponents for the evening were the Black Shirt Cool Group, who I believe hail from the United States of whatever. And they consist of the Strong and the Braverton, Concrete Davidson, and Party Boy Jax Jordan. These two are rebels without a cause. Well, maybe they want to win, but they're everything else. They're against the authority. They're anti-authoritarian. They're rebellious. They're bucking the trend, raging against the machine, and shaking their fists at the man, and all that jazz. Um, so for those unfamiliar with tag rules, with Newcastle Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Australia for that matter, the tag matches are contested under the Lucha rules. So the key component that you need to keep in mind when you watch these, once the active wrestler leaves the ring and both feet touch the floor on the outside, this automatically constitutes a tag, making their partner the active team member in the match now. Um, the good thing was with these shows, it was explained very clearly by the commentators, Bloody Larry and Cameron. So shout out to those guys. They ensured that the viewer understood that PWA and Newy Pro use this format instead of just the traditional tag team format that we've probably come to see through other promotions in New South Wales and Australia, and even stuff overseas like WWE even. So that was good. Just a little note there, but also if you're unfamiliar and you sort of see a wrestler like a babyface getting involved in a match and saying what's going on there, you probably need to. I guess what may be happening is that their partner has left the ring and their feet have touched the floor, therefore making them actually the legal competitor. So just something to keep in mind, and thanks to the commentators for making that very clear for this one as well. This was a really fun contest, and it was a really great way to start the show. The Black Shirt Cool group, they just have personality in spades, and they've got very good comedic timing, and they're highly entertaining. I mean, you see these guys when they enter the ring, um, their attire even very rebellious. And then, Conco, one of the things I really like about his entrance is the double T-shirt. So he's got like a sort of a bigger T-shirt, and then he kind of has this moment where he stands on the apron and he sort of looks at the crowd, and it leads to sort of a build in the entrance music, and off comes the first shirt, and he's got a much tighter Black Shirt Cool Group T-shirt underneath. It's a cool moment. It's kind of like I guess it may be a bit of a tribute to sort of Hogan or something like that with the T-shirt rip or something, if you will. But I think it speaks for itself, and you do have to check it out. It's very cool. Um, there were beyond that. Sorry, this is the first time I've done a podcast in a while, so I'm a bit all over the shop. But yeah, basically, some of the spots within the match as well. They were trickled with these entertaining elements particularly from the Black Shirt Cool group. So, Velocities, De Silver and London sort of deliver such an amazing style of tag team wrestling, and it was really cool to have it complemented with these sort of moments from the Black Shirt Cool group, and one moment with Conco where he was trying to sort of match the incredible speed and athleticism of Jude the Dude London, and that was quite funny and entertaining, as he didn't quite get to that same speed. Um, and the thing is, I do really like seeing Conco on a wrestling card. I do love seeing Party Boy Jax Jordan on a wrestling card, but man, when I see Jude the Dude London and Paris De Silva on a wrestling card, I'm just so excited for that match. As a tag team, they're incredible. As a trio with Matt Diamond, they're incredible. Um, they're going to do big things, and it wouldn't surprise me if in the future they're holding the tag belts in multiple of the major promotions, if you will, in Australian wrestling. That is, if they don't get snapped up overseas. Read an article today about AEW only having 47% of their roster, or some number like that. Not yet revealed. Maybe we see some Australians who deserve a shot. They're big on tag teams. Maybe we see the Velocities over in AEW one day. Maybe. Um, the result of this match was Jude the Dude London picking up the win for the Velocities. I believe the move is called Groovin' in the Shrew. I'm sorry if that isn't correct, Jude. But yeah, it's like a top rope double foot stomp onto the back of a bent over opponent. So unfortunately, in this case, it was Conco who took that, and it was a pinfall victory for the Velocities, who built some more momentum in Newcastle Pro Wrestling. It'll be interesting to see when they choose to use the gauntlets, as I'll touch on probably later as well. Matt Diamond is the middleweight champion, so that has some implications. If he's able to hold on to that belt for some time, and Paris de Silva or Jude the Dude London want to challenge for that middleweight championship, it could make things a bit awkward for that Velocities trio. Having said that, they could have a match out of friendly competition as well. But it poses an interesting story in the future. The next match was Full Force Matt Rogers taking on Billy Preston. And this match was originally scheduled to be a 2-on-1 handicap match with Billy Preston and Jimmy Townsend, collectively, of course, known as the Prefects, taking on the Newcastle Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. Unfortunately, though, Billy Preston comes to the ring. He's looking around. He can't find Jimmy Townsend anywhere, and that meant that Billy Preston would have to go it alone. It didn't bode well for Billy Preston, and it was kind of, as I said in my review, it was reminiscent of a young guy who's sort of sick of being picked on and then going up to the big bully and standing up for himself, hoping maybe other victims of the bully might come and have his back, and then turning around to find essentially a tumbleweed blowing past and being able to hear the seesaw in the background in the playground. So essentially that is what happened, and my long-winded metaphor can disappear, or simile, if you will. And the match in a nutshell was, Preston standing up to Rogers and doing doing it solo, but then just copying a dead set beating for being courageous. We saw the circle game spot, which the Prefects really love to do. The circle game, familiar with me from Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know if that was the first time it sort of made its way into popular culture, but it's that whole game where you create sort of an OK symbol with your hand, and you got to hold it below your waist, and if someone sees it and they stare at it, then it's a free shot to the person that was doing the circle. And they like to use it on matches to sort of put their opponents off, and Billy Preston used it on Matt Rogers. And he got a shot on Rogers, but then Rogers got a free shot on Billy Preston, and he used it to perform a big boot straight to Preston in the face. So Rogers did toy with Preston for a while as well, but eventually grew tired of him and delivered this almighty deadlift style pump handle slam on Preston and picked up the win. So it is essentially a squash match for poor old Billy Preston, who, I don't know that Jimmy Townsend would have made much difference, to be perfectly honest. Poor guy. But following the match, the announcer, Robert Oxley, who I'll just say I really do enjoy his announcing. He's very enthusiastic in this show, and particularly in the Hoose party show, Full Hoose, he was very enthusiastic. Definitely likes to get the crowd involved. Good stuff, Robert Oxley. But he returns to the ring after the match to interview Full Force, and he's asking him about which heavyweight he wanted to see win the upcoming Newy Pro Rumble. And Rogers advises that, he doesn't care and he'll beat whoever it is. Oxley then also points out that there's a tradition at the Newy Pro Rumble event, and it's a champion versus champion match that's held between the Newcastle Pro Heavyweight Champion and the Newcastle Pro Middleweight Champion. meaning he would have a match against the reigning middleweight champion, Matt Diamond. A Matt versus Matt contest on a mat. And Matt Rogers basically states that, he's the only real champion of the promotion. And that, of course, is basically calling Diamond out, and he responds. He comes to the ring, and the two men talk up the match. But then, big pop for me, Harley Wonderland's music hits. Harley comes to the ring with her Newcastle Pro Wrestling Women's Championship in tow and declares quite rightfully that she too is a champion of Newcastle Pro Wrestling, and then suggests the idea of a champion versus champion match. So yes, at the Newy Pro Rumble event, it will be Matt Rogers, Newcastle Pro Heavyweight Champion, versus Matt Diamond, Newcastle Pro Middleweight Champion, versus Harley Wonderland, Newcastle Pro Women's Champion. Huge announcement. It's going to be a huge match, and you can't pick a simple winner for that one. Big announcement. The next contest we got after this one was in the women's division, and it was between Belle Pierce and Tali. So this was a really interesting contest on paper when it was announced, as there are a number of talented wrestlers in the women's division, and they're all trying to stake their claim to challenge Wondies at a future show. So these two are certainly two of those wrestlers. So you've got Festival City's Belle Pierce, and you've got the Star Tali as well. And despite being edged out by Steph DeLander in a it was a highly competitive contest at Newcastle Pro Wrestling show on the Central Coast, the event before. Tali pretty much had to dust herself off here and get back in the ring, because a win over Belle Pierce, who, like I said before, is one of the Invictus Gauntlet holders, would be a really big pivot for her to bounce back towards the championship picture. Sorry. Belle seems to have a lot of fun wearing the gauntlet, I have to say. And, she manipulates it into her meditative, the OK symbol that they do with their hands. You obviously, with Jude as well, with the pointing of the fingers as well to the side. It is interesting to see it in a gauntlet. So, but back to it. Newcastle local Tali seemed to be more popular with her home crowd than Pierce, though. But that was fine by Pierce, who actually showed a bit of a meaner side to her persona. It's not something that I've seen too much of, and I found it quite fascinating as well. So there was a bit of a moment where there was a bit of a handshake opportunity, and Belle Pierce kind of used that as an opportunity to attack Tali early and get the head start. And that was just one example in the match where there was this more aggressive side to Belle Pierce that sort of came to the surface. When you look at a character such as hers, you probably think, she'd probably be very peaceful and calm, and but that's not the case here. And she certainly went after it, and it really worked as for her, because she picked up an important win over very strong competition in Tali. So Tali unfortunately had back-to-back losses in the last two Newy Pro shows, but big win to Belle Pierce, who continues to build momentum after being one of the members of that winning Kings of the Castle trios tournament, and having that gauntlet, that power to challenge potentially Harley Wonderland very soon. All right, up next we had Tyson Reed, and he took on Adam Hoffman. This was a clash between teacher versus student. And if you'd been following Newcastle Pro Wrestling social media during the week in the lead up, you'd see there was a bit of added spice to this match as well. Basically, there was like a push up social media charity challenge that there was a number of the Newy Pro roster that were taking part. For the life of me, I can't remember the cause, but They had to do a certain number of push-ups a day, and the video that Newy Pro had was basically Adam Hoffman doing some push-ups, and Tyson Reed came in and saw it as an opportunity to get a bit of an attack, an opportunistic attack on a prone Hoffman, and he actually stole the iconic gold chain of Adam Hoffman. So really set the stakes there. I don't know that I would want to upset the head of the beast like that, to be honest. But Tyson Reed is a very confident young man, and if you're unfamiliar with him, he's basically like riffraff, what you would call a lad. He wears, the polo Ralph Lauren, the dry fit, the Nautica stuff, the Adidas triple stripe tracksuit pants. He's got his TN shoes in the bum bag. It's clipped diagonally around his torso. You probably see groups of these guys around your food court of your local shopping centre or even at the local train station, which in Tyson's case is Gosford. So avoid Gosford train station between certain hours so you don't get rolled for your cigarettes, your wallet, or your mobile phone. Tyson, however, does not need a group to have his back, well, at least not for this match. I have seen him in other shows where he does have a crew, so he was just fine in this one, though. He was aggressively taking it to Adam Hoffman and even trying to use Hoffman's own gold chain as a weapon against him as well, just to really add insult to this whole situation, as if there wasn't enough insult already. But Adam Hoffman had plenty to say in the contest as well. And if anyone likes to get down and dirty in a match, it is the leader of the Blue Nation and the head of the beast. He delivered his best spine buster in Australian wrestling to Reed at one point, knocking the wind right from that lad's body. I think I even saw his spirit sort of floating above his body for a moment before it got sucked back in. But perhaps the lesson that the teacher did teach his student in this one is that it is okay to lose the battle if you're going to win the war, because Hoffman got his gold chain and he knocked Reed out with it. So yes, he lost the match via disqualification, but left the ring of his own volition, and he left it with his gold chain back around his neck as well. And he may have had his signature grin on the smile of his painted on his face, I should say. So I'll let you decide who really won that one. The next match we got, it was the last match before intermission. It was the New Kelly gang of Sam Osborne and Will Keatis taking on Ricky South and Carter Deems. This was a superb match, I'll just say. It really was. Could easily be the best match on the card. Not easily. Easily is the wrong word. Sorry, I'm not good at these podcasts. But it could have been in your conversation for best match of the evening. Four super, super talented young men in this one. Bloody great match. So rivals turned partners. Tough stuff. Ricky South and the world's finest Carter Deems. They battled the New Kelly gang. As I said, Sam Osborne and Will Keatis. Basically, at Newy Pro 79, after their match a match between Ricky South and Carter Deems, they were attacked by these guys, by the New Kelly gang, and they've used it as an opportunity to put that rivalry aside for the moment and avenge that incident by taking on the New Kelly gang here. And the New Kelly gang have been undefeated since shedding Jackson Kelly from the group. Jackson Kelly, following a cage match against Matt Rogers, has not returned to Newcastle Pro Wrestling. And Sam Osborne spent the majority of the match telling the fans in the audience this fact as well. Once the action started, South and Deems, they just wasted no time, getting stuck into the New Kelly gang. And we were treated to a really special match here with all four guys. As I said, they're filled to the brim with so much potential and talent. And I think the only difference here was the fact that Osborne and Keatis are an established tag team, and therefore they really didn't miss a beat, where Deems and South, they're that temporary team, and whilst they are fabulous singles competitors separately, South is not a member of Babes, so the chemistry was not quite there. And some little moments of miscommunication were evident during the match. And, this allowed the New Kelly gang to get the win here. It's an outstanding match and really worth watching the replay on OVO for. So well done to all involved. Very high on all four men, but I'll give particular props to Sam Osborne, who I've seen a few of his matches lately have really been top notch. There's this one, and of course the match with Robbie Eagles at Call to Arms, PWA Call to Arms. So you can definitely check both of those out on OVO, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The guy is very talented. I love the character work that he's got going on at the moment. He just walks out with this really big grin on his face, knowing that he's going to attract that heat. He gets the North Shore wanker chants thrown at him, and he just looks like he genuinely does not care. And the character work goes hand in hand with his incredible athleticism and his wrestling ability as well. He hung with Robbie Eagles. He hung in this match as well. Fantastic stuff. But also, Ketis South deems the future. And right here, these four guys, they stick with this organisation. They are the future of Newy Pro going forward. So very exciting stuff. During intermission on the shows on OVO, the good news is you don't have to just sit there looking at a black screen. You don't have to walk away. You can be treated to a match from the vault. So this was from Newy Pro 78, and we got the commander of the Red Nation, Jack J. Bonza, and he battled Four Nations original Tama Williams in an absolute slugfest. It really was. It was hard to watch in parts. So make sure if you watch the replay of this event, you go back and watch it, which I recommend you do. It's a great show. Don't skip it. Unless, of course, chops make you a bit queasy, then maybe skip it. It was pretty brutal. Speaking of Jack J. Bonza, following intermission, we had a match it was a triple threat match between Jack J. Bonza, Massive Q, who had Parker Thomas in his corner, and Royce Chambers, a young man from PCW in Melbourne. And it was an awesome little match. It really was. And Royce Chambers was super impressive here. I've never seen the guy before. And it's incredible to me that he's only 19 years old, and you can already see how much raw talent he has. He just has so much upside and potential, and if he keeps working hard, which it looks like he already is, making his way interstate, and from what I understand, he trained with the PWA guys during the week in the lead up to this. I think he even wrestled at Wrestling Go as well. So, even though at the start when he was announced from being from Melbourne, the crowd were kind of like, ugh, but he definitely won them over by the end of the match. We might not like Melburnians up here sometimes, but when they show what they're capable of, we'll definitely cheer for them, even if they make fun of our coffee. Look, the heavyweight division of Newcastle Pro Wrestling is a monster mash of big boppers. So they're all jostling to get the full force Matt Rogers. You've got, Triple S, you've got Jack J. Bonza, and you've got Massive Q. The last two guys, certainly big players in the division and are in this match. Jack J. Bonza on this night, though, was definitely the victor. He delivered that vicious Red Thunder driver, which is a pretty killer finishing move, and he did it to Royce Chambers to get the win. This move, basically, it's sort of a suplex, and then it gets dropped into sort of like a Steiner screwdriver, Omega driver, pile driver thing. It is nasty stuff. It is a pretty brutal finisher that Jack J. Bonza has there, and if his submissions and stuff aren't dangerous enough, he can also drop you on your head. and put you away as well. So he did that in this case, and hit Royce Chambers with it to win the triple threat match, and certainly moving him up the ranks in the heavyweight division. He had a big win over Carter Deems on the Central Coast as well. So he's on a bit of a roll at the moment, going into the Rumble too. So head to the main event, and this, your main event, you want a big match, you've got one here, and it was part of sort of Headhunter Riggs' trophy list, his buck hunting list, if you will. He had a big stag buck to take on here in Mick Moretti, and it most certainly sent all of the fans in attendance at the Charlestown Bowling Club home happy because, Headhunter Rig attempted to cross that name off against Mick Moretti. This match was ridiculously entertaining right from the get-go. Two mischievous wrestlers with plenty of charisma that's sort of exchanging that trickery, and Headhunter Riggs' trademark forks as well. Both of them were giving each other the forks. It was great. Headhunter Rig, from what I can see, has not lost in singles competition in Newcastle Pro Wrestling since November 2018. And he was certainly hoping to continue that in this match against somebody that's finally getting some of the international recognition that they sorely deserve, Mick Moretti. Mick has been selected to compete in this year's Battle of Los Angeles tournament. He was the inaugural winner of the PWA Coliseum tournament. He competed at Joey Janela's Spring Break in the Clusterfuck Battle Royale. He was a finalist with his Four Nations brothers, Jack J. Bonza and Adam Hoffman, in Chikara, King of Trios. Speaking of Chikara, he'll be going over to challenge for the major title over there as well at an upcoming event, and he also competed on New Japan Pro Wrestling Southern Showdown Sydney event, and he did that against Jack J. Bonza in a classic encounter that hopefully lots of New Japan fans have seen and getting more eyes onto the product. But I guess what needs to be said here is enjoy and appreciate the man we have him, because I think once he goes to bowler, his career is going to skyrocket, and you're not going to see him as often as you do right now. So definitely enjoy it. And I can tell you, I got plenty of enjoyment out of this match. It was such a perfect balance of comedy and just high quality wrestling as well. One part of the match that just made me laugh so hard, I had a mouthful of water and I spat it out. It was sort of this Eddie Guerrero tribute, where Mick Moretti, he sort of had his cane and he threw it at Rig and fell to the floor, feigning injury that the sort of referee would see and potentially disqualify Rig. But Rig just very cleverly and calmly threw it straight out of the ring. It just it was so perfect. I do not do it justice. But the thing is, it didn't stop there. Moretti then pretended to be stabbed with like a trick knife as well, and that sort of led to a really funny moment with the referee. And it was excellent. And there was a moment there where Headhunter Rig tweaked his ankle on a corner spot, and Moretti really went after it relentlessly. Even using fellow Four Nations counterpart Bonza's ankle lock on a number of occasions to try and put Rig away. And he really did look like injured prey in this instance and not the hunter. And it really did look like he might have gotten put away. But Rig is just durable, as you imagine a hunter would be. And relentless himself, and he kicked out of that Snapdragon Snapmare driver that the Rapscallion likes to use, and then he delivered a pretty devastating cannonball, and the dude has the best cannonball in wrestling, simple as that. Sorry, Kellyanne. And he was able to scratch Moretti's name off the list and give himself a huge boost of momentum leading into the Newy Pro Rumble event, where a lot of people, from what I understand, are tipping him to win and challenge perhaps for the biggest trophy of them all, which is the Newcastle Pro Heavyweight Championship, and one big bopper in Full Force Matt Rogers as well. So that was Newy Pro 80. It was a fantastic show. It was a great evening of Australian professional wrestling. And from top to bottom, we were gifted with some fantastic wrestling, comedy, and all-around entertainment. But let's hit the Gateshead and the Hoose show now. In Gateshead, fans of Newcastle Pro Wrestling descended upon the Hoose, which is from the name that Adam Hoffman and Jack Bonza had given the second incarnation of the Hoose. So it was a new venue, and it was a night of phenomenal action, kicking off what Jack J. Bonza described on social media as the month-long festival of Ovo the Top Rumbles, with the aptly named Full House event, which featured a 20-wrestler rumble with the best name for a rumble I have ever heard, the Mosh Pit. For those unfamiliar with the Hoose, it is essentially the venue portion of the House of Free Fighting, Hoff, the training school that is producing some of the best talent in the state, and the ones that we see at Newcastle Pro Wrestling and sister promotion PWA, and with trainers such as Adam Hoffman and Jack J. Bonza, it is rather obvious why this would be the case. We'll get straight into it. So Robert Oxley at the start of the show, enthusiastic Robert Oxley, announces that unfortunately Jude the Dude London, who had suffered a punctured lung which required some surgery, he was still not cleared to compete by his doctor from said punctured lung, and therefore the Velocities, who were meant to be a trio, of course Paris De Silva, Matt Diamond, Jude the Dude London, they were supposed to take on Team Hoose, which is Dazza, Headhunter Rig, and the world's finest Carter Deems. But Team Hoose were quite happy to still have the match, with the Velocities choosing another person from the roster or another wrestler that they could find to join their trio. Jude the Dude came out with the Velocities and announced that that person would in fact be somebody who has international experience, somebody who has Chikara experience. It could be no one else other than Tough Stuff Ricky South, which got a huge ovation from the crowd. Again, something that came to my mind watching this one was seeing Paris De Silva and Jude the Dude London with those gauntlets. Of course, Matt Diamond, the middleweight champion for Newcastle Pro Wrestling as well. It just really is really interesting to me to see that dynamic. And I am really keen to see whether this scenario will cause a bit of tension, or if they'll just be happy for each other and maybe have some friendly rivalry down the road if Matt Diamond is still the champion and they still have the gauntlets. What might happen there. So this was such an amazing contest. Having Ricky South in this match, it didn't. Having the late replacement, it didn't dampen the match in my view. I thought it was superb. I really did. The Team Hoose you could essentially call Team Future in my view. The three men on that side, all six men in this match, but those three guys just look like the future, where the Velocities sort of they're exploding now in Australia, and I really only think it's a matter of time before they explode elsewhere, and that's the only reason I say the other Team Hoose could be Team Future, because I just feel like the Velocities are on the brink already. They're known all over Australia. You listen to podcasts where they're talking to other tag teams, and the Velocities is always a name that gets mentioned if they haven't been fortunate enough to take them on in tag team action. So, the international stage is not far away for these guys. You look at the gifable moments, the jumping off the balcony, the shooting star DDT, and then the quality of their performances as well. They're going over to King of Trios this year. They're going to tear it up over there as well, just like the nations. Um, you know, it and the Shimmer Collective as well. How could I forget? So it's going to be big for them the next couple of years. So sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but you know what I'm getting at, hopefully. So, Team Hoose in this instance, they were hungry. They're looking to prove themselves, and what a scalp it would be to have the velocities. It's better than any trophy in Riggs Man Cave. Let's be honest. Um, you know, the three men in Team Hoose, the one I'm probably least familiar with is Dazza, and I just have to say I was super impressed with him. Very talented young man, and extremely popular as well with the crowd, it seems. And he certainly looks to figure in the middleweight title picture in the future. Um, and then Deems and Rig, I rate them extremely highly as well. And they have all the attributes that you want. They're very charismatic. They're very athletic. They have everything going for them. And I think they're pretty hot horses to back in the Newy Pro Rumble if we're perfectly honest. Like Rig, huge momentum. Deems is super talented as well. I'll probably talk more about the Newy Pro Rumble shortly, but yeah, they're two guys to certainly watch in that Newy Pro Rumble. The Velocities and South did work extremely well together if you were a bit worried about their cohesiveness as a unit, but they did a great job teaming together with minimal time, I think the Velocities would have appreciated just for once having a bit of a bigger body to back them up. I know with PWA in particular, they were trying to recruit Matt Rogers to give them a bit of muscle, so it was good for them to probably have Ricky South in this instance. Who, excuse me, no disrespect to Jude, is a bit of a bigger guy. And who knows, maybe he might be a Velocity in the future. Um, but yes, the Velocities picked up a really important win. Middleweight champion Matt Diamond, the catalyst for it in the end. He hit a Canadian destroyer on Dazza, and he followed it up with this brutal, gory driver slash vertebreaker for the win. Um, it gives Matt Diamond some great momentum heading into this champion versus champion match against Full Force Matt Rogers and Harley Wonderland, which I really can't wait for. Matt Rogers obviously had his momentum as well, dispatching Billy Preston in pretty impressive fashion at New Pro 80. The next match on the Hoose card featured three extremely talented wrestlers in Belle Pierce, Kingsley, and Steph DeLander. Um, so the spiritual sensation from Festival City, Belle Pierce, she went up against All T and No Sympathy. I've labelled, sorry, Bernard Fanning fan here. Kingsley and the Python powerhouse and most dangerous wrestler in Australian women's wrestling, in my opinion, Steph DeLander. Um, I think Kingsley and Belle Pierce very quickly realised the danger of having STL in the ring would have on the outcome of this match, and particularly it not going their way. So they sought to remove her very quickly. Kingsley and Pierce went to battle early, and both of them had a bit of a sense of urgency, in my view. They were trying to get that win and get it quick. Kingsley got to show what she was capable of early on. She was getting in some offense on Pierce and showing that despite her stature, she certainly can bring it, to quote The Rock. But Belle Pierce wrestled that momentum back into her favour, pardon the pun, and showed off that like a combination that she has of really solid strikes, but she also has quite technical holds as well that she likes to pull out. But in the time that they had, they couldn't put each other away because the match was far too competitive. And the Python powerhouse did, in fact, return and returned at her absolutely devastating best. Really sort of showing off that powerhouse portion of her moniker. She ragdolled Kingsley pretty badly. Um, But having said that, unfortunately for Delanda, she kept sort of finding herself on the outside. They kept neutralising her, Pearce and Kingsley, and it basically killed any chance of her winning this match. And Belle Pearce took advantage of that, and poor old Kingsley just took all that she could take in terms of punishment, and she submitted to sort of a modified go-go plata, which Belle Pearce has adopted as a bit of a submission finisher, and she gets a huge win. And yeah, I'm really interested now with Belle Pearce when she's planning on cashing in her gauntlet. I mean, she doesn't sort of have that same relationship with Matt Diamond as the Velocities have. So, there's a big champion versus champion match at the Newy Pro Rumble. Could we see an exhausted Harley Wonderland, for example, have to fight off an extra challenge from Belle Pearce? Just throwing it out there. Next up, we had Tyson Reed versus Will Keatis. And Tyson Reed was in action at the Hoose, and it was against the Goober Killer, Will Keatis, who really made one big mistake at the beginning of this match. He took a cigarette, a dart, a durry, if you will, depends on your slang terminology for cigarettes, and yeah, basically broke it, which upset Tyson, who has a crippling nicotine habit, and the poor person he rolled for that cigarette paid a fortune for it. Think of all the tax that goes on these cigarettes, man. I'm not even a smoker, and I feel bad. Tyson basically went on a rampage, and poor old Will Keatis did not recover from it, unfortunately, and ate a curb stomp for his trouble. And he wouldn't have to worry about the taste of nicotine, he'd just be worrying about the taste of canvas. And that match was over pretty quickly with Tyson Reed picking up the win. Last match before intermission was a match between Jack J. Bonza and Parker Thomas. It was a superb match. The commander of the Red Nation, Jack J. Bonza, had his hands full on this night at full Hoose against the master of motivation. And he certainly witnessed the fitness of the one and only Parker Thomas. PT and Bonza, they went back and forth in this match. And PT proved he's a game opponent for anyone on any given evening, and has self-belief and motivation for days, hence why an individual such as the worst case scenario, Massive Q would have even contacted him and contracted his services to motivate himself, as we saw at Newy Pro 80 with Parker Thomas in Massive Q's corner. But Parker Thomas had the toughest opponent of anyone on this night. He had Jack J. Bonza, the commander of the Red Nation. And despite the fact that Parker Thomas did very well to avoid particular moves, there's some suplexes that he sort of counted on mass, which could have transitioned into that Red Thunder driver. But the commander of the Red Nation, he, in my view, is the ultimate wrestling tactician. And he just has this uncanny ability to choose the most effective target for attack, excuse me, and go after it in pretty relentless fashion. So unfortunately on this night, Parker Thomas's left leg was the best appendage to work, and Bonza did just that. And Bonza basically proceeded to lock in an ankle lock, and then he just changed it to a wrenching, increased pressure of an STF, and Parker Thomas, in excruciating pain, immediately tapped out. So Bonza, like I said, has been on some kind of roll going into the Rumble. If he's in that match, and we'll talk about his performance in the mosh pit in a minute, I'd be worried if I was anyone other than Bonza in the match at this point. During intermission, like I said, you get the classic match. Well, this one was a Hoose classic, and it was a triple threat match. It was between Carter Deems, Paris de Silva, and Robbie Eagles. Superb match. And for those of us that aren't as familiar with Newy Pro, Robbie Eagles was actually a heel in this match. So it was a bit odd to hear the crowd booing and calling him a wanker and all this sort of stuff, considering how over the dude is when he enters Max Watts, for example. Carter Deems, big win in this one. He pinned Robbie Eagles, massive win, very entertaining match, and yeah, you never have to skip any of these matches. They don't just pick some filler match; they give you something pretty special from the vault. So if you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. But the Full Hoose, the name, really it was for this, the mosh pit. Following intermission, we had the mosh pit to determine it was one of the final 5 spots in the 30-person Newy Pro Rumble. Um, it turned out to be spot number 26. There's a lot that went down in this match. It was full of entertainment from buzzer to bell to buzzer to bell to bell. And, I'll go through the order of entry and the order of elimination. But look, there were plenty of entertaining moments throughout. Jimmy Preston hitting the schoolboy on Will Ketis, even though it's a rumble and you can't win. Sort of held them down for ages because nobody kicks out of the schoolboy. Preston also played the spot game with Jack Bonza. Seems Jimmy Townsend, sorry, not Jimmy Preston. Jimmy Townsend. I apologise, Jimmy Townsend. But yes, he was playing the spot game. Big mistake. And these prefects seem to like to find the biggest guy and play the spot game with them. There's also some good stuff with the guardrail as well. I mean, we see sort of Kofi Kingston doing some incredible stuff to avoid elimination in Rumble matches. But yeah, there was some innovative stuff with the likes of Paris de Silva and Ricky South. They were using the proximity of the guardrail and to the ring apron to sort of stay on the apron in the match. Sort of when going over the top rope and all that sort of stuff. The other part that was really entertaining, which must be mentioned, is Jack J. Bonza and Kingsley teaming up. You don't see Bonza smile too much, but when you saw Kingsley come out last, he was over the moon. That was until Carter Deems, I believe, eliminated her, and that sent poor old Jack J into a blinding rage. Ultimately, though, Parker Thomas, super impressive. Excuse me. Overcoming, basically the damage from the match he had against Jack J. Bonza. Only not all that long ago. I mean, this was the only match after intermission, and his match was just before intermission. So really, he showed a lot of courage, and he really made the most of a massive opportunity. And speaking of opportunity, he had a moment with Jack Bonza and Carter Deems sort of on the apron, sort of battling it out. And they weren't paying attention to Thomas, who got to his feet, and he hit a shotgun drop kick on both of them and eliminated them both at the same time to win spot number 26 in the Newy Pro Rumble. And that is a huge advantage going into the Newy Pro Rumble. So we'll just go through the entry order. So Donnie Mako came in first, and his opponent at the beginning was Ricky South. AJ Aaron Jake was number 3. Will Ketis came in at number 4. Jimmy Townsend in at number 5. 6 was Tyson Reed. 7, Paris de Silva. 8, Tanner Moe. 9 saw the Jester return. 10 was Jack J. Bonza. Number 11 was Local Talent. Number 12 was Dazza. 13, Reese Angel. 14, Bob the Viking. 15, of course, the winner, Parker Thomas. 16, Shane Sheffield Sinclair. 17, Ashton Munro. 18, from Farley Dojo, Andrew Villa-Lobos. Number 19, Carter Deems. And number 20, Kingsley. The order of elimination, though. Number 1, Aaron Jake. Number 2, the Shark Bro, Donnie Mako. Number 3, Jimmy Townsend. Number 4, the Jester. Number 5, Will Keatis. Number 6, Reese Angel. Number 7, Bob the Viking. Number 8, Ricky South. Number 9, Tanner Moe. Number 10, Paris De Silva. Number 11, Ashton Munro. Number 12, Shane Sheffield Sinclair. Number 13, Local Talent. Number 14, Tyson Reed. Number 15, Dazza. Number 16, Andrew Villalobos. Number 17, Kingsley. And 18 and 19, Bonza and Deems at the same time. Very, very entertaining show. And once again, very pleased, especially with this one, being the Hoose. You might not expect it to be up on OVO. I saw the announcement. I was very excited. I shared it on the Potato and Receipt Facebook page. May have even retweeted it on Twitter. I was very excited. I do love a Rumble. And there were some great match announcements on the card as well. And was not let down. Thank you to the House of Free Fighting and Newcastle Pro Wrestling for getting that one up on OVO. Some very serious talent coming out of the Hoff. Also the Pro Wrestling Academy. So New South Wales Wrestling is in very safe hands, a very good position, and definitely looking forward to the fallout of this at the 5th annual Newy Pro Rumble, which is coming up this weekend. So based on the information that we have at the moment, let's have a look at some of the announcements and maybe just have a little quick prediction just before I close up here. So some of the announcements that are official announcements for the Rumble. Excuse me. Massive Q, Big Fudge, Shane Sheffield Sinclair, who in a promo has promised to bring back heavyweight wrestling. Sam Osborne, who really spent his time talking about the old Kelly Gang versus the new Kelly Gang. But all the talent in the world. Carter Deems, Mick Moretti, Dazza, Steph DeLander, Headhunter Rig, Michael Spencer, and of course Parker Thomas. So we can also look at the poster. There's plenty of other wrestlers on the poster for the Newy Pro Rumble. We've got Bell Pierce, we've got Jay Sorbet, we've got Kingsley, we've got Dazza, we've got Tyson Reed, we've got Xena, Paris De Silva, Adam Hoffman, Tanner Moe, Will Keatis, Jax Jordan, Jessica Troy, Concrete Davidson, Kai Drake. So there's plenty of talent, and if there's a lot of those guys and who were in that mosh pit, so if they're able to get into the Newy Pro Rumble, it's a bit of an advantage. Let's be honest. They've already got a Rumble under their belt leading up to the Rumble this week. In terms of predictions, I kind of touched on Rig and Deems. The other one that I've got to talk about is Sam Osborne. Sam Osborne, super talented, and I can definitely see him potentially winning it as well. But the thing is, I could pretty much put an argument forward for most people to win the Rumble. And to be honest with you, anyone can win it. It's just a momentum shift in the ring to get someone over the ropes. And if you get someone at the right time and you're opportunistic enough, you can get it done. And there's a big prize, there's big motivation for everyone to try and win. So, I'll go with Headhunter Rig. We'll see if I'm right. To be honest with you, though, they could go any number of ways with it, and it's very exciting. You can catch it on OVO. I won't actually be able to watch this one live. I'm going to a wedding, but I will watch it as soon as it's up. I will follow the results because I definitely want to see what happens there. You've also got the triple threat champion versus champion match, which is going to be insane. You've got the heavyweight champion Matt Rogers, who claims he's the only champion that matters. He's going to have two very feisty champions taking him on to prove that, you know what, you're not the only champion. And that, of course, being the middleweight champion Matt Diamond, who, you know, can do some pretty amazing things in the ring. And then Harley Wonderland, who, you know, she's not afraid of anybody. More than happy to go toe to toe with anyone. She challenged both of these guys to make this a triple threat match. She is very confident in her ability, and there is no reason why she couldn't pick up the win here as well. It really is going to be a great show. Mike Quackenbush is going to be a special guest at the event. So if you are thinking about going up, you can meet Mike Quackenbush, who, you know, is an incredible teacher. He's got his book, his podcast as well. Definitely search him out on Twitter. And you'll see why anybody from PWA or Newy Pro, they just rave about Mike Quackenbush for very good reason. Very intelligent guy. The On the Turnbuckle boys actually have an interview with him on their podcast. Fantastic interview, and listening to the man talk about wrestling is incredible. You could almost have the guy read the phone book to you, and you would be very enamored with what's going on. He's got a very silky, smooth voice, and just the way he puts things to you as well. He definitely has that knack. Let me know who you think will win the champion versus champion match. Who you think will win the Newy Pro Rumble. I'll certainly do my best to share any of the information about the event that comes up after I've recorded this podcast. Thank you very much for listening to the show. This has been the P.O.F., the podcast of free fighting. My name is Dan Wilson. You can give me a follow at Potato and Receipt. So POTATOANDRECEI1 on Twitter. You can also search out Potato and Receipt Pro Wrestling on Facebook. Give me a like. Do post up articles. I share things. I also do a profile where I try and talk to a wrestler or someone involved in wrestling. Just a very brief little profile, some fun questions that I ask, and I do a little write up for them as well. If you're a wrestler that's listening that would like to take part, hit me up. I'd be more than happy to work with you. But yes, this has been the P.O.F. Thank you for listening, and till next time, consumers of pro wrestling. Sorry, I didn't really sign off very well there, but I'll catch you next time.